Hello! What's up? Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining Common Censored. This is Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello.
And I'm Lee Camp. And together, we make the... I don't know where that's going.
The used cars. Yeah, that's what it sounded like. Or like a morning show.
Yeah, like a morning show.
Hey!
And you get us together, and then it gets pretty crazy. So let's get into... We got MLK Day coming up, Martin Luther King Day. And I will never stop covering this story because I feel people still don't know it. And I'll get into more of the details on that in a moment. But the fact on this MLK Day, I think it's important to remember that in the only trial ever held on the assassination of Martin Luther King in 1999, a jury, after hearing from 70 witnesses, found that it was not James Earl Ray, who we were told killed MLK, and James Earl Ray always insisted he was innocent. It was a combination of a former Memphis police officer named Lloyd Jowers, who owned a bar and grill at that point from which the shot was fired, and government agencies, quote unquote, including the Memphis police, but also going higher up to the FBI. And so you brought this to my attention, and I think we should show people this.
Because this was from last MLK Day, obviously, because we're recording this before MLK Day 2023. So this is from last year. The FBI tweeted, which
official FBI account.
Official. This was before the blue check mark meant nothing. So this is actually the FBI.
This is before the blue check mark now means I paid $8.
Yeah. So it says, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, quote, "Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others?" End quote. This MLK Day and every day, the FBI remains dedicated to service and committed to protecting our communities. As I told Jackie Lookman when I was speaking to her earlier today, it's difficult to read that without both laughing and vomiting simultaneously. I just... Okay.
Like literally the FBI, Hoover, was involved in making sure Martin Luther King was killed. And even
before then.
Before what?
Even before he was killed, the FBI was doing things like sending him letters telling him to commit suicide, sending supposed evidence to his wife, Coretta Scott King, of his infidelity. And this was the FBI. The FBI, and outside of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they, I mean, if you just look up COINTELPRO, I'm assuming that a lot of folks watching this are already familiar with it. It was the goal of COINTELPRO to destroy Black liberation movements, whether that be the Black Panthers or people like Dr. King, also AIM, American Indian Movement, also anti-war activists. Like, it was their goal to break this shit apart, and they were pretty fucking successful. And so the very twisted, despicable fucking irony of that tweet, and I will say that last year when that tweet was sent, there was the internets did not remain quiet. There
were others on the internet that were not fans of this tweet.
Yeah. But I think
was it the CIA who tweeted out that Harriet Tubman was essentially it
wasn't a tweet. They put up a fucking statue.
Statue. Yeah, CIA has a
saying
statue.
She was like the first CIA operative.
Of how she was a CIA operative before the CIA existed. But this is how the CIA would behave.
Right. And they would have been on Harriet Tubman's side. Like, are you fucking kidding me? What? Yeah. So I wanted to share this. And also maybe
everybody can be great because anybody can serve. And if you are great, we'll kill you.
Well, it also
they left that part out of the.
Also, of course, and I'd also like to hear from you guys. What do you think the FBI is going to tweet out this MLK Day?
Yeah.
But also, it's very important to note, like, how regardless of whether it's the FBI or like, you know, like a fucking Mitch McConnell type or whatever, they always quote the things that have been sanitized and removed from context. So, for instance, if you read the entire I Have a Dream speech, which everybody knows the first line of it, of course, if you read the entire speech, he talks about capitalism and militarism and how they're evil. Why isn't that in our history books? And why isn't the fucking FBI tweeting out about like how evil militarism is and how evil capitalism is?
Well, and his three things really switched him from someone who was being arrested. He was regularly being arrested, right? To someone who needed to be assassinated in the view of the government. One was shifting to aligning with poor white people and saying we should all get together and fight for, better treatment. Yeah. Fight against this class structure that is destroying your lives. So he was uniting black and white people. That changed. And then also in the final year of his life was when he started commenting on capitalism and commenting on the Vietnam War. That was his last year of life. So those three things were really the three things that did him in.
Yeah. And as I think as you've talked about before, and as people have pointed out for quite some time, he wasn't killed until he started making the connections between the Vietnam War, but looking at things through that like class lens. And I mean, to be honest, he had, I'd say, leftist or socialist leanings his entire career. There's letters from him to Coretta Scott when they're not married yet. And he's talking about like how he's more socialist than she might be used to, or so. I
think he kept that stuff private till that last year.
Well, I don't know if he kept it entirely private.
A little more private.
He would say things without calling it, socialist or anti-capitalist, but he was talking about the evils of capitalism and militarism and tying that to class, and that is really fucking dangerous. And that's when he was ultimately murdered. And so I think that's really, really important to recognize, and to also look at the quotes that don't get shared. Like, I don't know, like a riot is the language of the unheard. Read the letter from Birmingham jail where he talks about the well-meaning white liberals and how they're oftentimes more dangerous than the KKK. Like these are the teachings that we really should be getting from Dr. King. I'm not saying that like the beginning line of I Have a Dream is not good. It's just not a deep analysis, kind of like what you talk about with the levels. It's like, it's a very beautiful comment,
right.
But it's not a deeper analysis. It's if it's some shit that Nancy Pelosi can say,
not just Nancy Pelosi,
not some shit that you are getting anything from.
Not just Nancy Pelosi, but other Republicans can get up there and go, look, I have a dream where we all get along too. Okay, I like that. Beautifully said. And just to go back I know that anytime each year this MLK Day comes around or something, and I cover this a little bit more, and luckily most people now know some of these facts at least. But I still, for those who are new to the understanding that MLK was not killed by James Earl Ray, I just wanted to quickly show one article on it, although there are many. But so now this is from a black-owned New York newspaper called Amsterdam News, that because, there is coverage in the New York Times in 1999. However, it's like one tiny paragraph on page, D24.
Sorry.
One tiny paragraph that admits that in this civil suit in 1999, the U.S. government was found guilty of assassinating Martin Luther King. His family also believed that James Earl Ray was not the killer. In 1999, Lloyd Jowers and others, including government agencies, were tried before a Shelby County, Tennessee 30th Judicial District Circuit Court on the charge of conspiring to kill King. Jowers had been a Memphis police officer, but then owned a grill that was directly opposite King's hotel room. And Lloyd Jowers, who at that point was 90-some years old and was dying, so he had nothing to lose by telling the truth, said that he didn't take the shot. It was a current Memphis police officer that took the shot, but he took the gun from that officer, brought it into his grill through the back door, and broke the gun apart. And a waitress who was also his mistress or something, eventually, although she was scared at first, but eventually testified that she saw him break down the gun that shot King. December 8, 1999, after more than 70 witnesses and 4 weeks of testimonies in a civil trial, Coretta Scott King versus Lloyd Jowers, a Memphis jury reached a quick guilty verdict in a wrongful death of civil rights leader, concluding that Jowers and others conspired to assassinate him on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel. And there's the abundant evidence of major high-level conspiracy of the assassination of my husband, Martin Luther King Jr. And one of Martin Luther King's sons met with James Earl Ray and shook his hand and said, "We know it wasn't you." And by the way, this verdict, the amount of money that the King family walked away with for this verdict was $1. So they did it for the money, really.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, it's very.
But so, and this isn't just to say, hey, look how evil our fucking government is. It also is to say, look how little respect our media, our politicians, our so-called leaders at various levels have for you, for us, for all of us, to never reveal this, to cover it up, to act like it doesn't exist, to continue to act as if James Earl Ray was the killer of MLK, which is ridiculous. And they do that to this day. They continue to pretend as if that's the truth. And they have no respect for any of us to that they, lie to us. Even now, even when all the main players are dead or in diapers. And I interviewed Dr. William Pepper. I know it's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. Dr. Pepper,
it's unfortunate. His name is Dr. Pepper.
It's not unfortunate. It's amazing. I will never forget this man's name.
I would prefer his name were Mr. Pibb. Dr. William Pepper, who was the lawyer for Coretta Scott King in that trial in 1999, but he also has spent his career. He knew Martin Luther King, and he also has spent his career since King's death basically focusing on the truth behind King's death. And there's a great book on it called The Plot to Kill King, and I interviewed him for Unredacted Tonight. If that video still exists, maybe somewhere
on Odyssey, right?
I think it's still up on odyssey.com, ODYSE.com, but I'm not positive. Anyway, little fun MLK Day trivia for the next time you're playing Jeopardy.
Yeah, and look out for the bullshit to fly on Monday, everyone.
The bullshit to fly. Get ready for a deluge of bullshit. So, shall we move on to Sweden? Do you feel like talking about Sweden?
Always. The funny thing is that you've actually read this article and I have not.
True, but I'll read a couple quotes from it.
But I am the resident Swede, so...
Yes. So, for those who don't know, Eleanor is half Swedish, half North Kakalackian.
Which is also always funny when I say it, because I'm like, how can you be like half of a nation state? But no. I am a Nordic Jew by culture, and by nation state bureaucracy, I'm a Swedish American.
Nation state bureaucracy.
More specifically, a North Kakalackian. Which, I like that. I like the sound of that. North Kakalackian.
All right. I'm glad I just handed it over to you.
Has a little sing-songiness to it.
So, Sweden. Well, before I show that, let me give some real quick background that. As you know, proxy war going on in Ukraine. The U.S. is using that to do a multitude of things, sanctions, deindustrializing Europe, forcing many European countries back into kind of a vassal system underneath the United States, Germany and France being the two biggest, maybe economically speaking. Sweden has long stayed out of NATO because they rightly understood that NATO is a war-making body. It creates wars. It, just to give one example, obliterated Libya at the behest of the United States and France, and it is not a peaceful entity. So Sweden, until recently, understood to some degree that they didn't want to be involved in this war-making body. Now, they have been either pressured or they're just that dumb. I think you would probably say that dumb. That they have agreed to join NATO. So now all that is left is that the NATO members have to agree that Sweden will join NATO and become part of this quick sprint. quick sprint towards World War III, in which alliances spiral out of control and create a world war, as they did in World War I. And so they've agreed to it. All that's left is NATO members have to agree to it. Turkey has said, oh, they're the ones that are really on the edge. And they say, well, do it as long as you do A, B, C, D. And they listed all these things Sweden has to do. And as Sweden claims, they keep moving the goalposts. So now that's a good... let me read this and then you can give your thoughts, because I want you to know what's in the article. So title: Sweden hustled in a military pact with the U.S. The U.S. and NATO assumed that it would be easy to convince Turkey to let Sweden enter NATO. The Biden administration's efforts to put a fast track on Sweden's accession as a NATO member petered out as Turkey balked, exercising its prerogative to withhold approval unless its conditions regarding Stockholm's past dalliance nice with Kurdish separatist elements is fully addressed. Biden and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, do you want to pronounce it differently?
No.
Assumed that all that was needed was a face-saving formula to pander to Erdogan's vanity. Sweden Prime Minister, you pronounce it, finally took the exit route, saying on Sunday in exasperation that Turkey has confirmed that we have done what we said we would do, but it also says that it wants things that we can't, that we don't want to give it. So that means for now, Sweden is not joining NATO. However, there's a caveat. Sweden's defense announced on Monday that negotiations have begun for a bilateral security pact with Washington, so-called Defense Cooperation Agreement, which makes it possible for U.S. troops to operate in Sweden. As the defense minister put it, it could entail storage of military supplies, investments in infrastructure to enable support and the legal status of American troops in Sweden. The negotiations are started because Sweden is on its way of becoming an ally of the U.S. through NATO membership. All right, I feel like I just pulled the Teddy Ruxpin string, and now...
The what?
Go.
What's a Teddy Ruxpin string?
It's a talking teddy bear. You pull a string and he talks. It's from the 80s.
Oh, okay. I didn't have teddy bears in the 80s. Not like I did. I had stuffed tigers instead. Anyway. So sorry, I'm just going to reread this because I was reading something else when you were reading this.
You got bored with me.
No, I didn't. I wanted to support. I wanted to yes and.
Okay.
To your bit.
I like it.
Okay.
He talks about what it could entail in Sweden, which is a lot of shit.
Yes. So let me just backpedal a little bit to talk about how recently the foreign minister, Tobias Billström, said in November, he was on Turkish television talking about like how much they want to join NATO and how great Turkey is. Literally talked about how great Turkish democracy is. I'm not fucking kidding you. He also has refused to criticize Turkey's bombardment of northern Syria and Iraq. And basically used the Israel defense and said like they're just defending themselves. And this is like he was talking about what Sweden would be willing to do, and he said, "So
how large of a dildo would you be willing to take the ass for by Turkey?"
So yes, there are Kurdish refugees in Sweden, and previously Ulf Kristersson has said that he can't go against, as much as he would like to, that's my emphasis, he can't go against Sweden or international law and just hand over refugees to Turkey because that would make sense. That's just a step too far. However, they're willing to play ball in other ways. And recently, in the same interview, Tobias Billström, the foreign minister, was talking about a new terrorism law in Sweden and how it might even be considered terrorism to fly the PKK flag, which is the flag of the Kurdish party, the Kurdish Democratic Party. So he's saying, you know what? We might just make it an act of terrorism to fly a flag. I'm just saying that's something we're looking into. We're not workshopping it.
We're not opposed. We're not. Normally we'd say that flying a flag is something we would allow, but under favorable circumstances.
Yeah. So this is like the political climate, if you will, where Sweden is at the moment. And I wouldn't say that Sweden's dumb. I'd say that Sweden is fucking lame. Sweden is weak, and Sweden is desperate to get its tongue all the way up the ass of Uncle Sam so that it can like check his prostate. Like, Sweden is so desperate to please the United States Empire. And I also wanted to point out that this idea of Sweden being neutral, even in like the Second World War, is bullshit. Sweden really has enjoyed like the PR of being neutral, but has in fact not been. Sweden during World War II, for instance, did a lot of work, both rescuing Jews and working on the underground resistance to Nazis, but then also had like a lot of Nazis and imprisoned people for fighting Nazis. So, And in terms of NATO, there's really just the one side of it. Sweden allowed NATO exercises in northern Sweden, which is the part that's closest to Russia, if you look at a map. It's also Sami territory, which is another, added layer of shittiness. Sami are the indigenous of the far north. Their homelands cross Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia.
I know this is going to blow everyone's mind, but apparently the indigenous of Sweden have kind of had their land stolen and fucked with and polluted, and they're not really respected by the political elite of the country. So there's that. Yeah. I don't know why. I'll leave it at that. ...
Where have I heard this story before?
Yeah, where have I heard this story before?
So Sweden has been playing ball with NATO for a long time, even before this latest push to actively join NATO. Sweden is also the world's third largest weapons exporter. So you can't be neutral if you're the world's third largest weapons exporter. He's not peeing, he's just pouring water into a cup. So
I don't think anyone heard that, and now they think, what the fuck?
Well, no, it's not. I mean, the mic does pick up some.
Doesn't matter.
So
I was also peeing, by the way. I know you didn't know that, but that's how good I am.
So yeah, you can't possibly be neutral if you're exporting weapons. And of course, back in, I think it was already in 2019, Sweden. The law was from 2019, but Sweden has already removed a law that banned them selling weapons to Turkey, so that they can sell weapons to Turkey as part of this new, like, you scratch my back and I'll sell you weapons.
It's kind of like the U.S. removed our ban of funding Nazis. We had put forward through Congress a thing saying we can't send arms to Nazis. And then in 2013, the U.S. Congress removed that ban on arming Nazis so that we could create the Maidan, quote unquote, revolution in Ukraine.
There's also like a vote at the UN every year about whether we should support Nazis.
To stop against the glorification or support of Nazis. And every year, every year there's like 2 countries that vote no on that. We don't glorify Nazis. It's like 2 countries, like U.S. and Israel or something.
Which is so funny.
Or no, actually Israel stands. It's like U.S. and one other, U.S. and Ukraine or something. But then this year it was up to 52 voted against it, because now you have all the countries the U.S. has pushed into being part of this proxy war. So,
well, yeah, and I mean these countries are actively supplying Nazis. So, oops.
Right.
Yes. So that's, I mean, this is kind of context to what you were just saying, but I think it's important context that makes what you were just sharing that much more grotesque, because it's part of a long-standing desire to just do whatever the fucking US empire wants to. And I do have a little bit of a problem with this headline, because it suggests that Sweden is this passive entity. Sweden is not.
Or the word hustled, it can mean pushed quickly, but it also can mean tricked. And so it sounds a little like Sweden was tricked into a military pact, which they weren't.
No, Sweden is a very active, and I think this is also part of the PR. And I'm not saying that where is this from? People's Dispatch. I don't think that they meant to make it sound like, oh, poor Sweden. But it comes across that way. And I think, unfortunately, even if it's subconscious, it might be part of the PR campaign that, oh, Sweden's been neutral and, oh, Sweden's this like socialist paradise. So they couldn't possibly be that bad. No, it really is that bad. Sweden is run by basically a fascist coalition at this point. There is the literal fascist party, but this guy that you see in the picture that looks like a little penis with a hairpiece on, standing next to Erdogan. That Ulf Kristersson has made a career of selling off publicly owned, state-owned entities and buildings and things like that, so that he can make a quick buck. He is like the perfect picture of a capitalist crook, and that is who leads the country of Sweden right now. So, really, not any of this like, oh, poor Sweden, or Sweden's this cool place that just happens to be in an awkward position. No.
Absolutely. So. I'm moving through topics a little quicker today because I want to get to all these because they're all important. And so rolling through the topics. Thanks everybody for being here. Please make sure you hit subscribe and follow. If you're a Rumble, it's follow, not subscribe. Every place has to have their own word. And click those things and click thumbs up, please, everybody, because it actually makes a difference with all these goddamn algorithms. Oh, Al is always fucking got my goat.
What does got my goat mean? I'm sorry, you wanted to get
he literally stole my goat. I had a goat, Al came by, no goat. Boy, what is there a guy that actually used that literally? Is there one literal chance where he fucking got my goat? What do you mean? He like insulted you? No, he stole the goat. All right.
Does it mean stole my goat, or that he like manhandled your goat? Which also
well, when you say someone manhandled your goat, that is a whole other thing. that involves a grundle. So I like that we're doing this with this headline on the screen.
I'm sorry.
So I want to move on to this is about action for Palestine and the people that are fighting back against it. And this actually, I know the headline doesn't look like it. This is actually a good news story once you hear some of the details. But people are in court fighting this week for taking direct action for Palestine. 2 trials are starting this week of people who took direct action against Israeli arms company, Elbit Systems. Elbit supplies the majority of drones that the Israeli military used to murder Palestinians. And I actually just talked about Elbit Systems on the latest Most Censored News, which you can watch at youtube.com/behind the headlines. But they are a horrific company, and they own, they now have like 80% of Israel's arms manufacturing comes from Elbit Systems or something like that. So this week, the case of 2 people who blocked the doorway of Elbit's London office is underway. This protest was one of a series of disruptive actions that eventually contributed to the closure of Elbit's London headquarters. So it actually worked. Shit, I forgot to go live on Rockfin. It actually worked, and they successfully closed one of Elbit Systems' factories, which is pretty awesome. And this is being done by Palestine Action. That's the organization. And at the same time, the trial of 3 people who were arrested close to Elbit's premises in Leicestershire. I don't know how the Brits pronounce it. Leicester Square. Has also begun. Police charge them with carrying items that could be used to cause damage.
Oh my God! I immediately thought of George Carlin. You could beat someone to death with the Sunday New York Times
if you try hard enough. The idea that you could be arrested for something that could be used to cause damage. I just bought a frying pan at the store. What? How's that? Illegal?
Although you actually did try to fly with a frying pan once.
I don't know what I thought.
But I mean, that includes my arm. Like, I can punch somebody with my.
Oh, you're saying your arm is a deadly weapon? Aren't we bragging much? Humble brag?
Yeah, take us to the gun show.
But here's the good news. Let's get to the good news. Very few people have been successfully prosecuted during the course of the campaign against Elbit. The likely reason for this is that the Israeli company is extremely scared of having its business exposed to court proceedings. The thing is, when you go after some of these people and want them prosecuted, often they get what's called discovery.
Yeah.
And their lawyers can say, we want to see everything Elbit Systems has said or done in connection to A, B, and C. And so Elbit Systems has often had to drop these or allow a plea deal that's very favorable. In trials across the country, activists have been acquitted, had their cases thrown out by judges, or have seen their charges dropped. In the courts this year, 18 activists have walked free, while 5 have seen minor convictions in the magistrates' courts, those being for criminal damage or obstruction of highways. Dozens of other activists have had their cases dropped and trials postponed.
That's great.
Pretty exciting stuff. And also, this is yet more activists that are having big success, getting Elbit to actually leave Britain, or one of the manufacturing plants to leave Britain, is pretty incredible. And this is the type of news you will not be getting from your mainstream media.
No, but this also really does highlight how the at least overt support for Israel is waning. It continues to wane, and I think that is very, very telling and very powerful. And just like we saw with South Africa, Palestine will be free. It's really just a matter of time, and actions like this will undoubtedly hurry that along. And so big props to all of the people who are involved in these actions all over the world.
All right, let's move on to some more awesome activists. I thought, now you haven't seen this video, but I thought you would enjoy seeing you actually might have seen it, but you will enjoy seeing it played here before we get to the Willow Project, which...
Oh, I know what you're about to show.
Oh, you've already seen it. Dude, but the size of this machine is...
They are actually the biggest machines in the world. They are the largest machines.
It looks
like the largest equipment used for anything in the world.
It looks like something out of like the fucking the mining camps on Star Wars.
I know. Like it is. It is
horrific. So this is in Germany. Look at the size of that. It's goddamn
a place called Lützerath
machine.
Yeah.
What the flying fuck?
I know.
I think they're clapping because they stopped it. Yeah. So the activists successfully got it stopped. But it is it's a massive mining machine.
Yeah.
That just tears the earth apart. And it's
for lignite coal, which is brown coal, which is coal. I'm not going to get too into the weeds on this, but it's coal that is younger than like the black coal that we oftentimes think about in the U.S. that comes from like West Virginia and Pennsylvania and stuff like that. This is coal that is far.
That's why they call them miners. Yeah, younger coal.
Okay. All right. It is far dirtier to burn, and it is less fuel. Wow. It is less fuel efficient. So it is incredibly destructive. That's why you need those fucking massive machines. The area of space that is destroyed is I mean, like sweeping. And you get less fuel efficiency and dirtier coal out of it. So yay for that.
Also, I'm sure that machine looks like it takes into account things like buried artifacts, animal, like various. There are tons of kinds of animals that live in the ground. I'm sure it takes into account those kind of things. Rabbits. What are they called? Warrens and various animal. I'm sure it takes all of that into account, and it stops each time it sees a weevil or whatever they're called.
So, so what's going on right now? What you're seeing is part of a push to protect Lützerath, and I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but. Lützerath is a small hamlet. I was going to say town, but then I Googled it and it's a hamlet, which I don't even know what the fuck the difference is.
I'll say this, adorbs.
Hamlet. Yes. And Germany is filled with these fucking adorable little hamlets, but Not as many as you would like, because literally they are being bulldozed for mining. And so
isn't Hamburger also in Germany? In their town?
there's Hamburg.
Right, Hamburg. So is that where hamburgers came from? And then there's Hamlets. So everything, they're just naming everything out of pork products after pork. Oh, it's beef, I guess.
Yeah,
Why
so
is the word ham in hamburger?
Okay, you're asking far too many questions that I don't have the answer to. So, in the interest of me not seeming stupid, or you not seeming stupid, I'm not sure which one, I'm going to move on. Lützerath is considered to be one of the last places on the chop block to expand mining operations in Germany when they've promised to start phasing out coal, which you might ask, how the fuck are those two not mutually exclusive? Of course, they are mutually exclusive. Germany is not phasing out coal, particularly not now that their energy connection
that the U.S. has
to
bombed
Russia
has bombed their pipeline
is tenuous at best. So basically, they are planning on destroying this hamlet for the sake of coal, of brown coal, lignite. And so this video that you're seeing here is taken from Lützerath. And if you follow Ende Gelände, which is the climate movement that's fighting this in Germany, then there's a lot of amazing footage and visuals. And apparently they just today posted on Instagram that 35,000 people from all over Germany have come to show solidarity with Lützerath, and which is probably far bigger than the actual population of Lützerath. So it's pretty fucking amazing that all of these people are coming to defend this town, and not just defend the town, but thereby make it clear that more coal mining is fucking insane and absolutely unacceptable. And so this is very good news. And although there's been a lot of arrests and there's been a lot of fighting that's been going on, I'd recommend people follow Ende Gelände if I will write down how to spell that.
Okay. And Eleanor's film has been played in various places in Germany. Her film is called Hard Road of Hope, and it's not about Germany. It's about coal mining in West Virginia, and fracking as well. Right? Mm-hmm. And so, but even though it's in West Virginia, as you can see, this is a global issue of destroying environments, destroying areas in order to get at the Black Death inside the ground.
Well put.
All right, shall we move to the Willow Project?
Yeah, well, I hope you all have had your fill of good news, because it's all over now. So the Willow, excuse me, I think I just swallowed a piece of my own hair.
See, if we had a producer on this show, they would have made sure that didn't happen. They would have been on it. They would have been they would have dove in front of the hair, the offending hair, grabbed onto it like a Secret Service taking a bullet.
Okay, so basically, ConocoPhillips, one of those lovely oil companies,
massive oil.
It's also Alaska's largest crude oil producer, so that's a feather in their cap. So it is planning right now something called the Willow Project, which, if approved, it will be the single largest oil extraction project on U.S. federal land. Wow, that seems like a great idea to do something like that right now.
If now's not the time, I don't know when is.
Right. Because first of all, these ecosystems, I mean, all ecosystems are fucking fragile, but the ecosystems in the Arctic are far more fragile because of the rapid warming of the planet. So the idea that you would go into these places and use them as a battering ram to extract more of the shit that's killing us all is the kind of fucked up, twisted Hollywood storyline that I I guess I'm not surprised, but I continue to be disgusted. The Willow Project.
Have to, that's part of doing this work, because you've got to maintain your disgust.
Yes.
You can no longer be shocked, because it's tough to shock me anymore, but you need to keep being disgusted.
It's making my eye twitch. So I think that means I'm disgusted. So the Willow Project would equal 287 million metric tons of carbon pollution, which is equivalent to 76 coal-fired power plants. Now,
I love that the name of it either sounds like a wonderful, like willows blowing in the wind, or it sounds like a cute film with a little person.
Dude, honestly, when I Googled Willow Project, the first thing that came up was just a bunch of links to the TV show.
There's a TV show?
There's a TV show about Willow. And I think the original Willow is in it, which, okay. But Val Kilmer's not in it, so I'm not interested. Even though he's not nearly as attractive now. But that, I mean, age comes to us all. That's fine. This is also, of course, with the, the layers of fucked upness, this is also an issue when it comes to Indigenous rights, because guess what? The Willow Master Development Plan, which sounds like something from a fucking Bond film, but it lies 36 miles from Niksut. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correct, but it's a small native Alaskan community that just happens to be already surrounded by oil and gas.
I would have thought these projects would always avoid indigenous areas, because they've taken enough over the years, and let's let them be.
Yes, I mean, they were trying to, but they couldn't find any white people that were close enough. So
they were going to avoid it, but then they remembered they don't care.
So they're also pointing out that this is a gate opener, a gate key, whatever the fuck I'm trying to say there, to more drilling, because it requires so much infrastructure to be built. 250
a gateway dug. I'm killing it today.
Oh god. At first I thought you read that, and I was like, shut up, they did not write that. And then I realized, no, of course they wouldn't, because they're not you.
Because they're not idiots.
Oh god. I really hope you can use that at some point.
Oh, that's coming back.
Okay, yeah. Good. I really hope so. So there's so much. I hate you so much.
It's really an ongoing feat for Eleanor to continue any train of thought.
It really is. Like oh god. It's like time.
This is why you had me around. You would have gone the rest of your life without ever hearing the phrase "gateway dug."
Oh, God. All right. Anyway. So it would require 250 new wells and 5 new drill pads, a processing facility, hundreds of miles of pipelines, at least 1 airstrip, and a gravel mine, because why the fuck not?
Oh, just an airstrip and a gravel mine. So it's a small procedure. It's just in and out.
Right.
Small procedure.
So this, basically what folks are saying is that this would mean that, hey, well, since you've got the gravel mine and the airstrip and the pipelines, why not have more oil and gas or drilling projects in the Arctic? Because you've already built all this shit. So this project is horrific on its own, but as a potential for so much more destruction, it is just there are no words to describe how atrocious this would be. So there are a bunch of different organizations that are working to combat this, but I would definitely recommend that you stay, that you keep your eyes and ears, not your ears open, because they're already, you keep your eyes open, your ears
unclogged.
Yes.
Okay.
Get the wax out of there for what's going on with the Willow Project, because this has to be stopped. And I know, don't sign a fucking petition, because you're going to get petitions and it doesn't matter. No one gives a fuck. Biden doesn't give a fuck that you signed a petition. This is like people.
Could you imagine Biden coming out and being like, we were going to do this, $1 billion had already been spent on it, but I got a petition.
Yeah.
Turns out there are 27
Leslie
people
from Kentucky sent me a petition.
There are 27 people in Eagle Butte who say they don't like this.
Yeah.
By the way, we'll keep talking about this topic, but we're also going to get to what the Fed chair had to say. That's goddamn insane. There's more coming. So join us at rumble.com/LeeCamp. That's rumble.com/LeeCamp. It's free to watch over there, and we're going to continue this live stream there. Rumble.com/LeeCamp. In the meantime, here's something to think about.
No, we're not doing that. What's the song in the meantime?
In the meantime, that's exactly